In this nugget, we are going to explore personification. We are going to look at a definition and explore some examples of the device. So let's start by reading the definition of personification. Personification is when a writer gives human characteristics to something non-human. Personification is considered to be a type of imagery. It creates a vivid image for the reader. It can also help to create a certain mood or atmosphere. The moon stared at me unblinkingly is an example of personification. The fire hungrily devoured the forest is another example of personification. Let's look at one of these examples in a bit more detail. The moon stared at me unblinkingly. The moon is described as staring. This is personification because the moon does not have eyes. The moon is an inanimate object. It is not human, and so it cannot stare. By saying the moon stared at me unblinkingly, it is being suggested that the person feels uncomfortable in the moonlight. Let's look at the second example. The fire hungrily devoured the forest in a bit more detail. The fire is personified as hungrily devouring the forest. Obviously, a fire cannot be hungry, and it cannot eat anything as it is not alive. Therefore, this is an example of personification. By saying the fire hungrily eats the forest, this suggests that the forest is destroyed quickly, just like you would eat something in a rush when you are hungry. Let's look at an example from William Wordsworth's poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. He writes, daffodils, tossing their heads in sprightly dance, the waves beside them danced. This is loaded with personification. The daffodils are personified as tossing their heads, and the waves are personified as dancing. Let's look at a second example from literature. From Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, disease had become an inhabitant of Lowood School, and death its frequent visitor. Disease is personified as something that can live as an inhabitant in the school. Death is personified as a person that visits the school. Let's look at some more examples. The moon waltzed across the sky. The wind banged angrily on the windows. And the tree branches reached out towards me, hungrily grabbing at my clothes. All of these examples have been fiction examples of how to use personification in stories, in narratives, or in description. So now let's have a look at using personification in non-fiction texts. This is an example of a newspaper article. Britain knocked out by beast from the east. This headline is an example of personification. Britain is personified as being knocked out by the storm. It creates vivid imagery of a boxer in a fight, and it helps to convey the message of the article. The storm has been very violent. This second non-fiction example is an autobiography, Memories from Childhood. The writer says, in early childhood, I remember climbing a gentle tree every day. I sat in its caring branches for hours on end. In this autobiography, the author personifies the tree, describing it as both gentle and caring. This creates a vivid image of a happy memory from childhood. In this final non-fiction example, we're looking at a travel guide. In London, the city is alive. The possibilities are endless. Visit the beating heart of the world as soon as you can. In this travel guide, London is personified. It is described as alive and as the beating heart of the world. This creates a vivid image of London's vibrancy. It helps to convey the message of the travel guide that tourists should come and visit London. To summarize, personification is when a writer gives human characteristics to something inanimate or non-human. Personification is a type of imagery. It creates a vivid image for the reader. It can also help to create a certain mood or atmosphere. Remember, you will get no marks in an exam for simply identifying a device such as personification. You must explain the effect of the technique to get marks.